everybody. Welcome once again to another Day 4 with the man, the genius, Mr. Frank Scalish. Frank, how you doing, man?
I'm a little amped up. I'm amped up like your music.
That's how I roll, man.
Yeah, that's it. It's good. That's good.
That's how I roll. All right, man. It is Classic Week. We've had a great week so far, and I know one of the things that we're going to talk about today is we're going to dive into some classic memories from Frank Scalish, along with the topic of discussion that we've had all week long about fishing out, fishing in the bushes, fishing 20, 30 feet deep.
Yeah,
dude, this has got to be great.
I just need to know one thing, dude. Where do I fall in your gambling stats?
The odds on Frank Scalish winning the Bassmaster Classic, huh?
Well, 5 million to nothing because I'm not in it.
Well, that is what it is. But would you wear a cowboy hat? That was one of the questions. Are you a cowboy hat guy?
No, look at this head of mine. No, I'm not a cow. You know what? I don't even like wearing baseball hats, but I have to because look at this head.
Yeah. So we have a ton of stuff to dive into. We're going to talk a little structure fishing, but first, Frank, I want to get your thoughts. Something happened yesterday that I thought was really, really cool, and that is the initials KVD getting the W and thoroughly dominated, man. Just vintage KVD yesterday. And for all those people out there that said, oh, he's washed up. Oh, KVD can't catch him anymore. Well, he just slammed that door on that, didn't he, Frank?
Yeah, he did. You know what? I'm happy to see that. He's a good dude. We go pretty far back, and he's a northern boy too. And you know, you can't keep him quiet for too long. So anybody that writes him off is it's like writing LeBron James off. He ain't gonna do it. I mean, you're just not gonna do it. He's one of the best anglers out there, and time again. The records he has proves it. The history that he had coming into the sport proves it. You just got to. Sometimes people, you just got to give a guy his due. I mean. Yeah, that's just the way it goes. I mean, you know, but I thought that was fantastic. I really did. I loved it.
All right, let me ask you this. Is he one of the top 5 crankers of all time?
Yeah, you know what? I would put him up there. 100%. Yeah. I would put him up there. Look, he knows the animal so well, and he knows the environment so well. One time, a long time ago, obviously it was a long time ago, I was on Amistad. How the hell did I confuse New York with Mexico? But I was, it's one of those mornings, gang.
Yeah.
I was on Amistad, and I was catching a lot of fish, but I wasn't into the size class that I needed. And he rolled up on me during the day, and we sat around BS for, 5 minutes, which when you're practicing with him, 5 minutes is a half a day. So, he's like, hey, he goes, just treat it like Lake Erie. You'll be fine. And he leaves. I go, treat it like Lake Erie and I'll be fine. And about 10 minutes later, the bell goes off in my head. And I went out on these deep, giant flats and started cranking treetops. The trees were growing in 40 feet of water, and they were topping out at about 25 feet, 20 feet. And I started looking for where all the trees made points that came into water. Like if you were deer hunting, you know how the ridge line comes down and goes into the hollow or the ravine. I started targeting on those areas and started catching gigantic fish. Wow. And I was, oh my God, dude. Every fish I caught was 5 pounds and it was like manna from heaven. And I was throwing big, deep diving crankbaits. I was throwing fat-free 7s, DD22s, and XDs. And it was a freak show. It was an absolute freak show. So I was pretty pumped because I was catching about 22 to 25 pounds every time I stopped my boat. And then, of course, only as fate would have it for me, because Murphy's Law always takes into effect, it blows like 35 miles an hour that day, and everything I had was in the middle of the lake. And it's not that I couldn't fish out there, I couldn't cast. You know what I mean? The winds were so strong that I couldn't make the long enough cast to get the bait down deep enough. And so I wound up having to bail on that and go to my secondary pattern, which basically I was fishing for maybe a check.
Man, when I think about, let's reflect a little bit, just real quick. When I remember that run that KVD went on when he was on the Elite Series, where he won a zillion tournaments and all of them were cranking, and the whole sexy shad thing that came out, and how whole thing, Kentucky Lake, and some of the stuff that he won during that streak that he had, you just thought that, man, every time this dude's on the water, he's going to dominate.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it was. I mean, it didn't even look like that. That's how it was, And a lot of the young guys coming in today never had the opportunity to see that, which was truly an amazing feat. I mean, as a bass angler, respecting other bass anglers, which we're going to get into that too.
Yes, we are.
It was amazing to see. I mean, anytime in any sport, when you have an athlete that is super talented and so dominating, it's so much fun to watch whatever sport it is, be it baseball, basketball, football. It doesn't matter when someone is that good. It's so exciting to watch because they do things that almost defy nature. Like we were fortunate enough in Cleveland to have LeBron James on the Cavs for a while. The stuff that he would do athletically I'd be like, what? You know what I mean? And so, and it's the same thing with the fishing world. Like you look at Wheeler today, I think today, right now, I think Wheeler's probably one of the best anglers out there.
No, he is. And his stats are actually better than KVD's at this time in his career, in Wheeler's career.
Yeah.
But for those people out there that said, KVD's washed up, he's a has-been. Dude, there are a lot of people out there, a lot of young anglers that need to go back and look at the history of the Bassmaster Elite Series and really take a look at how dominating the initials really were during a period where he freaking won multiple blue trophies.
Oh, everything. I mean, it was just like, you knew you were going there for second place. It was, look, and to take the minute to research the sport and to see where the sport was and came from and is going and stuff today, to do yourself the favor. It's important to know. I mean, if you love the sport so much, the history behind it gives you the ability to make informed statements. An informed statement isn't like, oh, he's washed up. You know what I mean? That's not informed statement. That's a ridiculous opinion. I agree. Ridiculous opinion.
I agree. You ever seen Kevin throw a Carolina rig?
No. No. In fact, the first time I saw him drop shotting, I had to go take meds.
All right, man. The reason I bring up the Carolina rig is I have an email from a fan, and I haven't told you about this, but I'm going to read it. All right. This is from Mark. And I'm not going to say his last name because I'm going to mispronounce it anyway. And in this email, it says, "Hi, Mark. I watched the Carolina rig show and shortened the leader like Uncle Frank suggested. I crushed them on it at the Elite Kayak Fishing Tournament on, I can't even say the name of the lake, Messalonsky Lake
Sounds
and
good.
Long Pond, catching more than 60% of my fish on the Carolina rig that day. And I lost a couple of fish that day, but I didn't lose anything on the Carolina rig. Thanks for all you guys do. Enjoy the shows. Thank you, Uncle Frank. There you go. Another winner as a result of Uncle Frank and the Carolina rig right there.
That is outstanding. That's so cool. I have goosebumps, and I'm a little jealous.
I'm telling you, man, people don't realize the power of the Carolina rig. Now,
No.
I don't know if you listened or watched the show with former Elite Series Pro Tuesday, Jeff Reynolds. He talked about the Carolina rig being a factor this week on Lake Ray Roberts. What are your thoughts, Frank?
Yeah, here's this week. I wish that I was there, because here's the thing. You definitely have a high water episode, so there's definitely going to be some shallow fish. But the thing that you guys need to remember too is that when the high water episode appeared, the spawn was already over, and the water temperatures were already above 70 plus degrees, 77 degrees. So there's a faction of fish that already started to go where they want to go. Okay. Now, here's going to be the key to the offshore bite there. The key to the offshore bite there is going to be determine how shallow or deep the fish are offshore. Just because you're offshore doesn't mean it's 50 feet deep.
Right.
There's stuff offshore that's only 8 or 9 feet to the surface. So once they determine that depth range, like here, look, if it was me, honestly, I wouldn't even look at the bank. That's me. Because if you could find enough fish offshore, it's going to be stable. It's going to be a stable bite. And generally the fish are going to be a little bit bigger, and there's going to be more of them in a tighter confined area. So it's conceivable that you can go out and knock down 10 or 12 bites every time you get to one of your, structural elements. And so I'm excited about this classic. I haven't been in a long time, but I am, because this fishes to my wheelhouse. Now, some of the shallow guys are going to put up a good day. Don't kid yourself. There's going to be some guys fishing shallow that are going to knock them out. But is it going to hold up for the entire time? No, I don't believe it is.
All right, let me ask you this, Frank, because I had a couple of emails from Texas BTL fans that said one of the characteristics about Ray Roberts is if you get on a good pattern, the difficult part is those fish will not replenish. In other words, you're not going to have fish taking the place of what you catch on Ray Roberts. Is that typical for the summertime? Because it is summertime. Water temps in the 80s. Is that a typical scenario, especially on these southern lakes where fish get definitely into a summertime pattern, to where you need to have multiple spots that has the characteristics that you're catching fish, but you may not be able to milk one of those spots for very long?
No, that's 100% accurate. You got to realize, once the fish go to their summer pattern after post spawn, they're done moving around. The bait's out there, they're comfy, they're going to set up house, and they're going to stay there until the bait starts late in the year, end of August. Here it happens in the beginning of August. Down there, it'll happen towards the end of August. Once the bait fish start to bunch up, get high in the water column, the bait fish are going to start to move towards the creeks. They're not going to just be there overnight. They're going to start to move. Then them bass are going to start to move again. But up until that point, they're staying put. And my rule of thumb when I structure fish is this. When I practice for a tournament, I try to find 3 places holding fish every day I hit the water. So by the time the tournament rolls around, I have 9 or so spots that are guaranteed holding fish. And then I make milk runs. I run round robins on those spots. And I hit them at different times of the day, because what happens sometimes is you get there and they're just not firing. They're not fired up. So I run to the next one, and then all of a sudden I'm going to pull on one, and it's going to be manna from heaven. Bang, bang, bang. I'm going to start catching them. I might run to the first spot where I didn't catch any later in the day and catch them. And so when that happens, then what I'll do is, as my spots start dwindling and not produce, I start to run that pattern throughout the rest of the lake, because I could find more spots during the tournament. When I'm structure fishing, I don't get crazy, because I know that I can go find more during the event and be productive. And not, I'm not wasting time, because I know at that point in time, I know exactly the depth I'm looking at. I know what kind of rocks they want. I know if they want steep breaks, or if they want gradual breaks. I already know all that crap. So I don't have to waste time looking at anything but what I'm catching them on. Yeah. And that's how I approach structure fishing. I mean, it's just, I simplify it and dumb it way down once I figure it out.
All right, let me ask you this. This body of water, Lake Ray Roberts, that they're going to be competing on for 3 days, it fishes small, Frank. I've had numerous people tell me this. If you are on that outbite, the pressure, the fact that the fish do not replenish, would it be a better move? Because probably, let's say you have a 5-spot or a 5-area milk run that you have, and those fish aren't firing on the first 2 spots that you go to, the decision that is made then to either stay there, because you're probably going to go to your 3rd or your 4th spot and somebody's going to be on it because of the fact that it fishes super small. Would it be better to forget about the milk run and just solely focus on 1 or 2 spots and just live or die with those 2 spots? Or do you roll the dice, take a number, get in line, boom, now you're on spot 4 and 5?
Now, when I structure fish, I don't die anywhere. I know I know immediately if I'm catching them, because I start to catch them immediately. And so, I run my stuff. And then I'll even go back and do it again. If somebody's on one place, I just roll on by and go to the next place. Just because somebody's on it, structure fishing is crazy. Just because somebody's on it doesn't mean they're catching them. Here, I'll give you an example. This happened to me the other day. I was out and I'm excited because the spawn's finally petered out here and the fish are starting to move a little bit. I fished for 2.5 hours and I never got a bite. And I was looking at structure stuff and I never got a bite. And so I said, well, I'm either too deep or too shallow. So I said, since I'm already doing this, I'm going to run some of the shallower stuff. And so I started on the shallower stuff, and I'm fishing quite a bit of spots. And all of a sudden, I get a 2.5 pounder on the Carolina rig. I hit spot lock, and I'm like, okay, now I got it dialed in, and I make about 15, 20 casts with the C rig, and I don't catch another one. And I'm like, there's not one smallmouth here. There's not. So I had 5 crankbait rods out, because whenever I Carolina rig, I always have I at least have 2 crankbait rods out. But this time what I did, because I didn't know what depth I was going to be in. So I had a Norman middle end, a deep little end, a DD22, a fat free 7. And then I had another middle end in a different color and another deep little end in a different color. So I pick up the middle end, I fire it out there, and as soon as I hit the first rock, wham, I load up to the cork and I got a 4-pounder. I fire back out there, wham, I get another one. 2 casts later, I get another one. Now, listen to this. This is crazy. I pick up the deep little end. I fire the deep little end out there. Boom, I got another one, and it feels really large, and it's fighting funny. I got 2 at the same time. Okay? So I get them in. I fire out another cast. Boom, I get another one. I got two again. And so I'm like, oh my God. So I literally moved my boat 2 boat lengths maybe
Yeah.
and put 32 in the boat.
Holy
So
crap.
yeah, I swear. So here, this is what structure fishing can do. Now, conversely, okay, I fished everything I could fish on that river channel. In front of, behind, inside, outside. They only were in one 45, 50-foot stretch.
Wow.
I went and fished all over the place, everywhere else. Before I left, I said, I want to go catch a couple more. I'm going to run over there, smash a couple more, and I'm going to go home. I ran over there, caught one almost 5, caught 3 more, and I packed my stuff and I left. And that's what structure fishing can do. They're not, you have to be so tuned in to the angle that you're casting, to the specific type of structure that you're fishing. And if you're not, another dude could have rolled through there and never caught one, or maybe only caught one. Like if I didn't have my backup offshore stuff, I would have caught one on the rig. I wouldn't have caught another one. Maybe I would have caught another one. You know what I mean? But at this particular day, the water was a little off color. They wanted the crankbait and they wanted it bad. And so, so this is what I'm saying. This is why this classic excites me, because even though it's going to fish small and the offshore bite is going to be money for the guy that is completely tuned in on depth, angle, and type of structure with the cover that he's fishing. He's going to be tuned in and he'll be able to catch those fish where some dude that just rolls up on them and is just going to rip down the structural element randomly is not going to catch them. And that's why I love offshore fishing so much, because it is the finer tuned you are, the more success you have.
All right, Nate's got a great question. I'm going to throw this up here. Do you try the milk run on practice days to figure out the timing, or do you do that on Derby Day?
No, I do that on the day of the tournament. Here's what happens. As I'm finding my spots offshore, you're going to find 1 or 2 areas the quality of bite is definitely going to be better, or the amount of fish on that structure is going to be better. And so then that's my first stop. I go to the best place first all the time, and then I run from there. Because what if you don't go to your best spot first and somebody beats you there?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to play the tournament to win. Don't be cute during the tournament and try to outsmart everything, because you'll lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you this: when it comes to Ray Roberts and the situation, conditions the guys are dealing with, the water's been up for quite some time.
Yes.
All right. Yes, it is fallen a little bit, but it's still 3 feet, 3.5 feet up in the bushes. Things have been what I would call fairly stable.
Yeah.
With that taking place, those fish have grown, or have they grown more comfortable with the conditions that are out there, to where they quite possibly might be in the shallows a little bit longer during this pre-summer or the beginning of the summertime pattern. Do you believe that there's got to be a balance to win this tournament in catching some fish shallow, but also catching some fish fishing out and fishing structure? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if the lake fishes as small as everybody's saying it's going to fish, you're going to have a couple of tricks up your sleeve. I don't think you said something key a second ago. You said the lake has dropped a little bit.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's been stable.
Correct.
So what happens is those stable conditions, those fish, a lot of the population of bass is still going to want to be where they go in the summer. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen is you got to remember something. There's always bass shallow. Always.
Yeah.
So if a guy's a shallow water expert and he doesn't like the offshore game, he can perform fairly well, especially on that lake, fishing all the flooded timber and stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
especially if he dials it down to certain things that, because fishing shallow stuff is just like fishing offshore. There's going to be something pattern wise that develops. They might want hardwood, they might want willows, they might want buckbrush. They might have to be by a little drop off. You know what I mean? There's going to be something there that they can fine tune a pattern where they can just start flying down the lake and whipping in places going, this should have them, this should have them, this should have them. That could be very effective. And I'm going to tell you, there's going to be some giant bags come shallow. I don't think it's going to hold up for the entire tournament.
All right. How important is the forage, the bait fish, the movement? They got to be where the food is, right?
Right, but there could be a late bluegill spawn going on, because sometimes bluegill spawn multiple times a year. There could be a late bluegill spawn going on. There's going to be food for the shallow fish, absolutely. But there's also going to be plenty of food for the deeper fish. The whole key there is going to be to determine what depth range you need to be in. And that's just the art of structure fishing. I mean, you just have to figure out what depth range they're in first. That's the whole key. And then you could focus your targets on that depth range.
All right. Are the better structure anglers the ones that can truly get dialed in and change on the fly?
Yeah, 100%. There's
Okay.
100% accurate. I have a lot of success offshore. That doesn't mean everybody that fishes around here has the same amount of success. Some guys are made a living fishing shallow here year round and never get off the bank. It's just their strength. There's always shallow fish. It's just how many and how big. I just like structure fishing so much that it's, I'm the happiest man on earth when I have to squint to see shore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know.
Here's an interesting one. Let's bring this up from Derek Frank. What can you say about throwing heavier hair jigs for offshore structure fish?
Okay. I'm gonna do a blast from the past, boys and girls.
All right.
I used to make my own preacher jigs. And if anybody knows what a preacher jig is, basically it's a half ounce. Well, it could be any weight, but I preferred the half. And I would tie 3 or 4 hackle feathers on it, long ones, so they would stick off the back of that jig. And then I would tie a bucktail body on them. Okay, add some crystal flash to them, bucktail body. And then I would go out when I was done Carolina rigging or cranking. I'd fire out that bucktail and I'd pop it, hop it, swim it, and I would always catch some residual bass doing that. I got away from it because it became I got away from it, and I don't know why I did, because I used to catch a ton of fish on it. And it's not a bad idea. Like I always mix it up when I'm structure fishing. When I'm done with an area, depending on how deep it is, when I'm done with an area, I'll go through it with a CC spoon. Similar situation with the bucktail. I'll go through with the CC spoon. A lot of those big flutter spoons that were real popular several years ago, that was something the fish never seen. And when they suspend out there, that flutter spoon flutters through them and they hit it on the way down. A different type of technique, but it's mixing it up. So you're catching extra fish by doing this. So that's another thing. But a real structure guy will be dialed in, and he will know. They want a Carolina rig, they want a football jig, they want a crankbait. He'll know exactly what they want, and the angle of the cast is going to be the money game here. It's not random. Structure fishing is not random.
All right. Do you think a lot of the younger anglers that are trying to get into this game really don't know and kind of pass off the Carolina rig and the football jig, that that the game has taken a turn to be more of a finesse style rather than what you and I kind of grew up on? I didn't mean to stump you. He's locked up. Frank, don't go away, dude. Uh-oh. I think the kids might be watching YouTube videos or something at Frank's house. Either that or he hit the cord again. I remember a couple of weeks ago he tapped the cord and the feed went away. Frank, come back, please. And I don't even have my phone. I left my phone in the house. Frank! You're right. He looks so serious, man. He's always serious when it comes to structure fishing. Frank, what happened to you? All right, he's gone. Hopefully he'll be back shortly. These things do happen. Hey, I want to remind everybody while we have just this little short break, we'll get back to Frank. All right, I think he's back now. Let's see here. All right, you back?
Yeah, I don't know what exactly happened. All of a sudden,
the cat's hanging around, man. Or cat's getting into the router box or something.
I don't know, man. All of a sudden, my thing came up and said error, and it just went blank.
All right, so I don't know how much of the question that you heard. I'll repeat the question. The question was, do you think that the young anglers of today really don't take advantage and really have kind of passed up what we have grown up on, structure fishing, Carolina rig, cranking, that they are into the finesse thing and trying to do these crazy, crazy things with spinning rods and reels and really don't take advantage of how good that the old school stuff is when it comes to structure fishing?
I think to them it's too slow.
Really?
I think it's too slow of a way to fish for this generation. And I just think that they were brought up with the electronic game and their style of fishing is different. I know for a fact that I see a lot of people on some of the lakes I fish up here doing a lot of drop shotting around and everything. And, it's fun to beat them in a tournament. There's lakes that absolutely tune themselves into the drop shot finesse type of game, net rigging and stuff like that. Absolutely, 100%. But you could take, like, I like the Carolina rig. I like the football. I like the crankbaits. I'm power fishing offshore essentially. And, and I like it and I'm effective and you can be too understanding that it's not, if you pull up on something and you're not catching fish, you have to just take a step back and you have to figure out what you have to do a little bit differently. It could be the angle of your cast. It could be you're not on the right type of structural element, or you could be in the wrong depth. Here the other day, I fished for over 2 hours and never got a bite. I never got a bite, but the minute I made the adjustment, I turned a really crappy day into a good one.
All right, here's another question from Anthony. Speaking of the casting angle, if the angle is wrong the first go around, will those first several casts hinder your results?
No, they won't. They'll play mind games with you where you may not think that there's fish there, or conversely, you might spend too much wasted time on a place that doesn't have fish. But no, generally speaking, the fish aren't going to be, you're not running over top of them. You're just casting. So you're not really disrupting them at all. Now, if you keep idling over top of them and driving around, you're spreading them out, and it's going to take a while for them to gang back up. But casting at them doesn't hurt them at all. I mean, no. Mm-mm.
All right. Man, classic week when I did the odds show yesterday. I mentioned, once again, this is a extremely young field. Not a whole lot of earnings. You only have 5 people in the field, I believe, that have earnings over $1 million. A lot of guys, this is their second Bassmaster Classic. A lot of inexperience from a classic perspective. And so many things take place off of the water during this week.
Oh, yeah.
That it's very, very easy for you to get spun out. The mental game, in my opinion, the 23 that I've been to, the mental game is actually won off the water, not on the water. All right? You can duplicate and get intense and play your game once you get on that water. But being mentally strong while all this other stuff is going on during Classic Week is really a key difference maker in how you perform on the water. What I want to know is, what has been your experience with all of this stuff that takes place off of the water, and how much did that truly impact what you did once you finally heard your number called and got after it on the water, Frank?
Yeah, the very first Classic that I made, they still did a lot of pre-planned eventing, and so this is so funny. So we drive to Birmingham. This is the first Classic I ever made. It was my first season in the elites. I made the Classic. So my wife's pumped. She's coming down with me, and we didn't bring the kids. They were way too little, and I didn't want that distraction, so we didn't bring them. So she comes with me. We pull into Birmingham, and it's like a freak show. There's, trucks and bass boats and banners and cameras and people, and it's like overwhelming, right? So we get to the hotel. I think it was the Sheraton, downtown Sheraton. I don't remember. It could have been the Sheraton. And we get there, and I pull up with the truck. People grab our luggage, and we walk in the front doors, and there is a bazillion people, cameras everywhere, banner on the top, welcome Bassmaster Classic qualifiers. And without missing a beat, I turn around, I look at my wife, I go, they're all like this.
What a veteran.
Yeah, I just completely downplayed the whole thing, and she's just like, what? And I go, no, I'm only kidding. This is out of control. So anyhow, when I get there, they give you a packet, and in the packet is literally an itinerary sheet, okay, that has at 5:45 you'll be here, at 6:20 you'll be here, and it's just this monster list of places you got to be, and there's no time. This wasn't the first Classic I made. I'm going to make a comparison to the next one I made. So there's no time for anything. We literally have 1 day on the water where we could fish. Then we have to take an outdoor writer out for a few hours and do some, stories and stuff. Then we're off the water, and then we got to go back to the itinerary list. Okay. So literally, I think for the first Classic I fished, I think I had 6 hours worth of practice time on a lake I've never seen in my life. So that was getting in my head a little. So they say you have to go to the autograph tables. I'm like, what the heck are the autograph tables? You know what I mean? What do I know? They have this whole thing set out, and every angler is sitting at tables. And we have, our cards to sign, give away to the fans. And then the fans bring stuff for you to sign. And this lasted for hours. And I was like, when do we get to fish?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I signed windshields of guys' bass boats, women's lingerie, paddles, canoe paddles. I signed things that I never thought in a million years that I would put my name on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was truly amazing. It was eye-opening. Then they had a twist back then. You couldn't run your own boat. You had to run a provided boat. Well, in practice, I had a pattern going at the one dam, And when the current would change, I would run all the way up the lake, up the river to the other dam. And I would do this a couple times during the day based on how they were pulling water. Well, my bass boat at the time ran right around 74-ish. So I could easily get from one end of the lake to the other a couple of times during the day. So I had to gear down all the tackle to put into the tournament boat. So I gear the tackle down, and you got to remember, you're doing all this in between your itinerary. And you cannot be late. You absolutely cannot not be late. So blast off comes around, and they say go, and I go, and the boat that I had wouldn't go 57 miles an hour.
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, how am I going to do this? I can't make it back and forth 4 times today. How am I going to do this? So I had to pick a section of the lake and live in it. And I got crushed. I think I finished 42nd or something, 40th. It was terrible. Chalked it up to first classic. Yee-hee. So let's go to the second classic. So I go to the second classic, and it happens to be on the same body of water, by the way. And we had Lay Lake.
Okay.
So we have, in practice, we got to go a little early for practice. We have snow, wind, rain, lake turns pure mud. In fact, I went out to my boat and I had to chip the ice off the cover in the morning, and I saw something by the wheel of my boat, and I looked down, and it's a little tiny kitten curled up by my tire. So I get the kitten, I bring it into the hotel I was staying at, not the classic venue, because this was pre that venue.
Yeah.
So I bring it in the hotel. I tell the lady at the hotel, here's this kitten, found him underneath my boat. Take him, do whatever you want with him. If you don't want him, I'll come back and get him. You know what I mean? Because I'm not gonna kill the animal. So I'll come back and get him. So anyhow, the long and short of it is, I find fish way up this little river, as far up as I could go, and in fact, KVD won that one, by the way, as usual.
Yeah.
So, but we go to the classic venue, and we get our itinerary sheet, and there's like 3 things on it. I'm like, what do you mean? The last classic there, we had 5 pages, and I got 3. They toned everything way down. The second classic that I fished was so much fun because I could do whatever I wanted. I didn't have to be anywhere except for the 3 little places. I didn't have to be anywhere. I spent time with my friends, other anglers. It was the most fun I've ever had. And I never got the classic jitters. You know what I mean? I never got those. I was very calm going in on it. The fish that I found up this, I call it a river, but really it was almost like a stream. When I got in there, because of all the rain and everything we had, it was like 3 feet high and ripping current. Well, every obstruction that was on the bank that I pitched into, there was a bass there, and good ones, like big ones. So I was really kind of excited. When I got my boat draw in the morning for the tournament, I run up there. The water had come down 2.5 feet, and the river was barely a trickle of movement, and all them big bass were gone. I got a limit in 5 casts, but they were all 1.5-pounders. You know what I mean? They weren't them big ones that were in there. I could never get back on the giant ones, so I wound up just scramble fishing the rest of the day. I think I wound up in 21st place in that classic, I think. But the difference was monumental because the pressure I didn't feel the pressure I did on the first one at all.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I know things have definitely changed over the years. I think one of the biggest changes in the history of the Classic was when you just talked about it, when the guys were able to use their own boats. I mean, that was a huge development and factor in giving the guys, the participants, the best opportunity to win.
Yeah.
Being familiar with everything that they had and the equipment that they were using for the entire season. All right, I want to ask you this. A lot of discussion about the heat. It is going to be massively warm over the next few days in northern Texas, which brings up the question, Frank, should the Bassmaster Classic move around? This is a topic of discussion that has been discussed numerous times. I don't think we've ever talked about it, but obviously, depending on the location, they had to move this to the month of June. Now we have a summertime classic, of which that is what the Classic was for so many years. And then we made the move to where everything would either kick off with the Classic or after one or two events on the Bassmaster Elite Series. Is this event the Super Bowl of bass fishing? Should it move around? Should we have a springtime classic, then move it to a summertime classic, move it to a fall classic? What do you think, in your opinion, is the right thing to do for all parties involved, the anglers, the sponsors, and the fans?
Yeah, I mean that's the double-edged sword, because let's be realistic. The Classic venue focuses around the sports show that's connected to it. So they're going to find places that best suit economics, basically.
Right.
And so that's part of the issue. Me personally, I would like to see it moved around. But I understand dollars and cents wise why that doesn't make sense. And plus it gives the anglers a focal point that everybody knows the Classic is going to be between these 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying? So people could make arrangements for it and stuff like that. I would like to see it moved around, just as a fisherman standpoint, or at least take the Classic up north in the summer where the water temperatures aren't as hot. Because I read a study on delayed mortality, and when the water temperature is over 77 degrees, I believe it is, the delayed mortality rate is astronomical on those fish. It's hard on them. You know, even if you ice down the live wells and do all the tricks, it helps. But at the end of the day, they're still being bounced around. They're still being confined in a live well, and so it's tough on the bass too. But it's, at the same token, I like the summertime classic.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm not Ken Duke, and I don't know the history of the 50 previous classics prior to the 51st classic, but I would like to see a fall classic, and here's why. All right, because I'm one of those guys that loves the grind, and I think it would be cool to see these guys go through an entire season, and then to conclude that season, make it to the greatest event in bass fishing right now, which is the Bassmaster Classic, and that is the finale. The dude gets crowned, he takes the trophy, holds it over his head, and then boom, we're off to another season.
Yeah, I like that concept, to have the Classic the last event of the year. I like that concept a lot, actually. Because it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to have 2 or 3 tournaments under your belt. Well, obviously there's more than that this year, but to have 2 or 3 tournaments for the following season under your belt before you know who the champion was for the last season.
Yeah.
So I agree with that too. Plus, you put it in the fall, it changes the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It changes the game.
Yeah. And let's face it, Frank, is this an incorrect statement that you have a lot of guys out there on the Elite Series they're pretty doggone good when it comes to pre-spawn and spawn. And when you have that same tactic, same conditions year after year after year after year, you kind of give those guys a little bit of an advantage. Now, somebody's going to come back and say, oh, well, you got people out there that are great fall fishermen. Yeah, you do. Okay? Move it around. Move it around.
Right. I can agree with that 110%. I don't like chasing the spawn anyway. But as a tournament pro, you have to know everything about it. I think it would be interesting to keep moving the Classic, to be honest with you. I think it'd be interesting. What I would really like to see is I would like to see the tournament trail scheduled throughout all 12 months. I would like to see you will see the most here I am finally at a loss of words. you're gonna see the most diversified angler survive when you have to fish in every single facet of the bass's life. Mm-hmm. Those guys will rise to the top, and you will really see who the best of the best is then, because they're the most versatile. You know what I mean? The most versatile anglers on the planet. That's what I would really like to see.
Yeah, that would be cool.
You know,
that would be cool. Hey, I'm going to say this about Frank Scalish. And folks, I know you guys love hearing from Frank, but I think one thing that I hope everybody realizes, Frank is a great angler. He's a great teacher. But the one thing that I love about Frank, dude, he's a fan. He loves this game. He loves everything about the game. And that's what's so cool about you, Frank, is even though you've been out of the Elite Series for quite some time now, dude, the passion that reeks out of your voice and your body is just amazing. And I don't think the fans truly understand what a gem that they get every Thursday listening to what you have to say about the past and the present and the future. So I greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure that the fans do also, dude.
I appreciate it. You know, I love the sport so much that in the beginning of my fishing career, I had a hand in a lot of changes that took place in this sport, and one of the big ones was the Rookie of the Year actually getting money for winning Rookie of the Year. Because I said, you know, here's a guy. Like when I won the Rookie of the Year, I got a pat on the back. Attaboy, good job. And truthfully, and I said, well, whoa. That's the guy that needs the money the most. This is his inaugural push into becoming a full-time pro. Why is there nothing for the Rookie of the Year? You know what I mean? And so I was actually instrumental on getting that done. And there was a bunch of other things that I fought for, and some of it happened, some of it didn't. But I love the sport so much that my concern is for the angler and for the animal. And that's pretty much it, you know? I mean, it's just great.
Yeah. Do you have a cowboy hat?
No, I don't have a cowboy hat. Did we not go through this?
Yeah, we went. I'm just busting your chops, man.
Yeah,
one of the prop bets that Matt had, something about how many times somebody's going to wear a cowboy hat on stage, or yes or no, is Dave Mercer going to wear a cowboy hat on stage?
I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't tell you. You know, I don't fish. I knew I had friends of mine that actually fished in cowboy boots.
What?
Yeah, they fished in cowboy boots. I don't know. They thought they were at a rodeo or something. I'm like, what is wrong with you, man? How do you get in your bass boat with a cowboy boot on? Wow. That is like, I'm like, what dude? It never happened for me. I would never do that on a bet, man.
Wow. Clay, no, we are not going to get into Gene talk once again. I don't know if you caught that show where Matt was going into his bedazzled jeans that he wears. We're not getting into that.
No.
Holy
Bedazzled
smokes, man.
jeans. Cut me some slack, boys and girls.
I know. Unbelievable. All right. A lot of discussion about this, and I'm going to try and get this up on the screen. Let me see here if I can do this. Let's see. Looky there, Frank. Everybody's talking about another new color on a Super Spook Junior. Black, blue, pearl, chartreuse. People are already buying it.
Yeah.
What's the scoop on this?
That's a very nice color. I like this color too. I like the other color better for my clear water applications.
Yeah.
But this is a sexy looking bait right here. It's crazy, but you have to understand this Super Spook Junior's pitch and roll when you're walking the dog. So you're getting all the body flash from this. It's not just they're not just seeing the belly of the bait. When this thing goes left and right, it's rolling as it's going left and right. So you're getting all the pearls, you're getting all the translucent colors, and you're getting the chartreuse. It looks really alive in the water. So that's the reason that I really, really love, especially the Super Spook Junior and the Super Spook. I like the way they walk, and the split ring and the crane swivel trick really accentuates that. Here, I don't have the DM that I got sent the other day, but I got a DM the other day. Guy says, went on LureNet, bought that Super Spook Junior, the
black chartreuse metal shad or something like that.
Yeah. Bought that, bought that thing, did the tricks that you said. He won the tournament. Him and his partner won the event, top water bite all day long, and they hammered them. They blew the thing. They blew it wide open. So, you got to use your eyeballs when you're looking at lures, man. If that thing looks good and you know how that lure functions and you see that color palette, if you could imagine how that's going to look underwater to a bass looking up at it, if it's a color that you should have or not. And that's another color that you should have. You know what I'm saying? You got to have some solid colors and you have to have some transparent colors. That's what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah. Well, unlike last time, this time, as soon as the show's over, all right, I'm going to order a couple of those.
I actually got mine in, and so I'll be sending you some of the
thank goodness
chartreuse metal. Yeah.
So, I will be dropping the shopping cart on that one as soon as the show ends. All right, man, I want to ask you this, Frank. You've been really, really entrenched in the business side of this game. You had one of the best title sponsors in the history of the Elite Series at one time.
Oh, yeah, bar none.
All right. Do you think that the winner of the Bassmaster Classic in 2021 is going to earn at least $1 million from the endorsements, like what Ray Scott used to say? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think that's the way it is anymore. It started to get toned down later as I fished later into the years. That $1 million money just started to get toned down a little bit. Do I think there's guys that could command that kind of money? Absolutely. Is it normal? No. Where before it was, you have to understand something. Before the older days of the Classic, it meant more. The older days of Bassmasters qualifying for the elites meant more. I don't know if it meant more because it was so new. I don't know if it meant more because they kept it more exclusive, but it meant more. Today, I don't think it does. There's a lot of different avenues for marketing today that we didn't have back then, AKA you're looking at some of it right now.
Yeah, YouTube, social media, all that.
we didn't have that prior. You know what I mean? All we had was the exposure that we could garnish from the trail. And now I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way either, but some of the classics getting diluted a little bit. Before you used to have to qualify to be there, and the only way to qualify to be there was, through the opens. But in the old days, they only had the opens. But then when they came out with the top 150 and the top 100 and now the elites, those used to be the only ways you could qualify for the classic. Now they're finding ways to put other people in the classic that really haven't spent the time, the dedication, the money, the sacrifices to be there. And it kind of dilutes a little bit of the field, I think. No offense to the people that make it that don't fish full time. But my belief is you shouldn't be in the classic unless you're fishing full time.
All right, big event on Saturday. I believe it's Saturday. For the first time in the history of the game, bass fishing is going to be live on a national network, either ABC, CBS, NBC, or Fox. It's going to be live on the main Fox channel for the first time. How many people do you think are going to be channel surfing and all of a sudden they see this guy on this boat in this, motocross looking jersey with logos all over it, fishing, and stop on it and go, that's interesting. Do you think that's going to happen, Frank?
Well,
because of the exposure?
Well, yeah, you have to understand something. There's some people out there that just love sports, regardless of what sport it is. They just love sports. Putting politics into sports is ridiculous, in my opinion, because you watch sports for the pureness of the sport. And that's what makes it so good. It's real TV. It's real. It's not fake. It's real. And I think there's people like that, and there's people that have an interest. You got to understand something. During COVID, they sold, I think it was, and I might be wrong on the percentage, so I'm sure Ken's gonna give me a smack when I say it, but I think new fishing license sales nationally, I think, went up 48%. That means, that means people that never bought a fishing license or have not bought a fishing license in 10 years or more. That's a whole glut of new anglers coming into the mix. So there's a whole glut of new people that will be channel surfing and stop. You know what I mean? So I do think that's going to be good. And I do think you're going to put more people into the sport to watch that way.
It's going to be really cool to see how it develops. I'm really going to be curious as far as the ratings and see what the Nielsen ratings are that comes out after this show. Some people, I think the casual non-fishing fan is going to see fishing and not realize the importance of this event in the bass fishing world. They're just going to see, fishing. Yeah, let me watch that for a little bit.
Right. And it's gonna happen. Perfect example is I've had people that I've met throughout the years go, "Oh yeah, I saw you on the Bassmasters." And I'm like, the Bassmasters? Yeah, the Bassmasters. I go, "Oh, you mean the Classic?" Yeah, the Bassmasters. And I'm like, okay. So they don't really know that the Classic is like the deal. Okay. Yeah. They don't know that. But you can't fault them for it because it's a sport they don't follow. Like I couldn't tell you who the number one tennis player is today. I don't follow tennis, so I don't
Jimmy
know.
Connors? Is it Jimmy Connors? No.
It's McEnroe.
John McEnroe?
Yeah, dude, I used to love that guy. I love awesome. I couldn't wait for the next meltdown. I mean, that's really all I cared about. Just
I was a huge fan since you mentioned it, man. Ely Nastasi. How about that dude? Do you remember that guy?
I do.
The guy that used to have freaking a conniption every time he was on the court, probably broke more rackets than anybody in the history of the game. Look that one up. He's got some great YouTube stuff out there. Eli Nastasi.
That's so great, dude.
I think he was from Hungary, the Mad Hungarian.
The Mad Hungarian with the tennis racket. Look out, he's live.
Yeah, you never knew what that guy was going to do when he was on the court. Anyway, not to take anything away from what MLF has done, by having their championship on CBS, but that was obviously produced and pre-recorded and put in the can.
It wasn't live.
It wasn't live. And for this to be live, you never know what's going to happen. Quite honestly, I hope that some of the action is fast and furious. I hope that it's not just guys on decks of boats not catching anything, because I think that will hurt. I think people are not going to sit there, unless you're a hardcore fan like us, that are going to sit there for 15, 20 minutes waiting for some guy to catch a fish. Because you and I can learn from what they're doing by not catching fish. 100%. Where I think the new fan is not going to accept that, and they're going to get turned off by it, and they're going to go to cornhole or whatever.
Right, but you guys, here's the beauty part about our sport. Fishing can be enjoyed at any level. Your idea of fishing might be, I'm going to get a lounge chair, I'm going to sit on the bank of the lake, I'm going to drink a beer and wait for my bobber to go under.
Yeah.
Your idea of fishing could be wading some stream somewhere with tennis shoes and cutoffs and go have at it. You're playing out in the woods, and if you catch 5 little smallmouth this big, it's fine because you're out there and there's deer and everything. Or your idea of fishing could be where we take it to the highest level. And that's the beauty part about our sport, is it's all encompassing. And so I think it reaches more people that way. But depending on the level you're at, it's like you're 100% right. If you're not totally into the game, you're not going to watch a guy standing on a boat not catching anything for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But if you're into the game, you're going to not only be watching him, you're going to be going, dude, you got to move to the right. God, look at what's to your right. Holy smokes. How could you not throw at that freaking bush with the green leaves on it? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're vested in it. And so the whole hope is that you can get other people vested in it.
Here's an interesting question, and BTL fans, you can help me out on this and follow up with me next week. If you are out and about over the weekend, what I am curious to know, if you go to a Buffalo Wild Wings, if you go to a sports bar, if you go to a Chili's or whatever.
Oh, I see where you're going.
What I want to know is how many of their monitors, their televisions, their big screens has the Bassmaster Classic in those establishments. That's what I want to know. Because with UFC, Frank, and UFC is just one example, but I have a Buffalo Wild Wings not too far from my house, and every time that there's a big UFC thing, they have UFC watch parties. Now, they've got like 50 big screens and monitors and TVs all over the place. So I am very, very curious how many of these establishments will have professional fishing on their monitors if you happen to make your way out and about over the weekend during the Bassmaster Classic. Really curious about that one.
That's really a cool thing.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna do the bar crawl just to see who's got it on.
Yeah. So
good.
Just shoot me an email. You know what would be cool? We'll actually talk about it on the show next week. Just take your phone, take a picture of the flat screen or big screen or whatever they got in the bar, the restaurant, wherever you're at, with bass fishing on there. Send it to me, and we'll see how many of those that I get. Just send it to mark@basszone.com. If I would have thought of it, dude, I have
contest. Yeah.
No. If I would have thought about it here in the metro Oklahoma City area, I can't do it, but I would have had somebody. We would have had a watch party. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be at the Classic. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Right. But to have a watch party at a Buffalo Wild Wings, or kind of like what we're doing next week with Black Rifle Coffee, doing the live remote on Wednesday next week here in Moore, Oklahoma. That would be really, really cool to have a watch party for the Bassmaster Classic.
That would be special.
Yeah.
It would be.
Yeah. So cool. We'll see. Send it to me. All right, Frank, a lot of people are wanting to know, from a Carolina rig perspective, what do you think is going to be the best thing to put on the hook on that Carolina rig this week at Ray Roberts?
Well, it's going to depend a little bit on water clarity. To give you an example, if the water's off color, that more off color than normal, they're going to throw bigger body baits like a Christie critter, a big brush hog, just bigger, bulkier bodied baits. Displaces more water, creates a lot of, displacement. Fish could hone in on it easier.
Yeah.
If the water's fairly clean or clean as normal,
which it's not. It's not, man. It's the Ray Roberts green is what it is.
Okay,
you can see about a foot.
Yeah. So what that means is they can go to like spine craw, spine craws, speed craws, lizards. They don't have to go big and bulky. Sometimes it's a good idea to Carolina rig a 10-inch worm. I've done that in Tennessee a lot. It's something they don't see that often. The other thing too is that it could be the crankbait bite. I mean, it could be, or the football jig could come into play, banging around on the rocks, making all the noise, kicking up all the debris on the bottom. So that's kind of how I would play it. That's kind of what I think is going to happen, how I see it going down. I think you're going to have to mix it up. I don't think you're going to go out there and just throw the Carolina rig. I think you're going to need big crankbaits with it, and you might need a football jig with it. Something, you got to throw it different. Remember, the Carolina rig, sinkers on the bottom, making all the commotion, baits behind it, moving around behind it. Football jig, the baits in the rocks, bang, 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 kicking up all the stuff, bang, bang. And the crankbait, of course, because they're keying in on shad this time of year, ricocheting off stuff, trigger and bite. So I think you're going to probably need all three to be really successful out there. As far as flipping the bushes go, the water's probably going to be cleaner at the bank, just because the flooded water gets up there, settles down, cleans out. So your typical shallow water techniques are going to be okay for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, interesting question here from Brian. How similar will this be to the Conroe Classic? I have a couple thoughts on that.
Fire.
Well, there is a specific characteristic about Conroe. Conroe gets a lot of pressure. All right. And part of that pressure comes from the number of tournaments that they have, the local events, local tournaments. There is an enormous amount of brush piles and structure, all right, placed in the water. When those guys found those specific characteristics somewhat unique for the time of the year that they were at, they blasted them. And then you had another scenario where guys were up shallow. They were way up, I guess, up the river where the trees and bushes and all kinds of other stuff was. Kind of a sketchy run, but some guys had some success up there. I'll say this about Ray Roberts. The comparison from that perspective, you're going to see a lot of similarities where guys are going to find sweet spots that have been created offshore that have very unique characteristics, but people are very familiar with some of those characteristics about these particular spots. Then you're going to have other guys that get really, really busy in the timber. All right, timber is going to come into play in this event, and then you're going to have guys that make sketchy runs and find this sweet area that's up shallow and fishes the bushes. I am a firm believer, based upon the guys that I've spoke with, Frank, you're going to have to do both. You're not going to be able to win the whole thing fishing shallow. You're not going to be able to win the whole thing fishing out. It is going to take a combination of both, and the key factor that every person has told me that I've spoken with is the ability to adjust on the fly. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and that's that's always the key, especially in a big event like this, is to fish very open-minded. If you get closed in, you could close yourself out. So you want to be open-minded. I don't think the Classic's going to be one shallow. I do believe that you may have to have a couple shallow places to go to get the right bite, but I don't think it's going to be one shallow. I think I almost am agreeing with you that you're going to have to do a little bit of both. It's just how much time are you going to spend out, or how much time are you going to spend in?
Here's the other thing too, Frank. These guys are good. And it's not like you're going to be able to find something and go, oh, well, nobody else is going to find this. This body of water is too small.
Right.
It's too small. And for the most part, everybody knows everything about this lake. So if some guy was able to go out and find something special, a unique characteristic about this body of water that somebody else is not going to capitalize on, that might be the nugget that they need to take them to the top of the leaderboard.
Well, it's always that way. You know what I mean? The guy that finds the trick is going to win the thing. I mean, that's just how it goes. There's no secrets. You look at everybody's electronics, how everybody's boat's equipped. There's really no secrets. It's just finding the one thing that puts that one or two right bites in your boat that makes the big difference. It could be something obscure.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question, not on the YouTube, but on the instant feedback over on basszone.com. Andy wants to know, will it shock you, Frank, when Patrick Walters wins using a jerkbait with forward-facing sonar? What are your thoughts on that?
Nothing surprises me anymore. Here, I'm going to tell you guys one thing you can always count on in bass fishing. There's always fish that are willing to break the rules.
They don't read the book, right, Frank?
They don't read the book, man. It's always, you learn something. I learn something every time I hit the water. I never stop learning, and I'm always surprised. I am. I'm just always surprised. But when I learn something new, then I start to research that, and I start to get into that nitty gritty, because I want to be as good as I can possibly be all the time. And so, no, it wouldn't surprise me, but it would surprise me.
Anything's possible, right, Frank?
Anything's possible.
Yeah. I do think I believe I asked Jeff Reynolds this question, how important is the first hour of the day? And he said, very important. That's the deal with the topwater bite. On this body of water. Man, if you're fortunate enough to catch, say, a 5 or a 6 or maybe even a 7 on topwater, man, that is just bonus. And it kind of turns that day of speculation and mystery into something that you've solidified now what you're trying to accomplish for the remainder of the day. So I'm telling you, Frank, 23 classics that I've been to, this has got to be, with the exception of Chicago, which was an absolute disaster.
Oh, totally.
The one that Wu Dave's won.
I was there. It was totally a disaster.
This is one of the most intriguing classics to me because it's the first one in the summer for a while. You've got a great group of young anglers, all right, that may have to fall back to some old school methods, of which you've got 2 or 3 guys in the field that are badasses on lakes like this with this summertime pattern that's getting ready to happen. I cannot wait for the drama that is going to develop over these 3 days and really learn from what these guys do on a heavily pressured, small, very, very few number of areas to see what these guys do and how they attack it for 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I can tell you for sure through all my experience fishing all over this country, fishing pressure changes everything.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It just does. Guys that figure out little tiny tricks are going to be the ones that are going to capitalize. Yeah.
All right. A lot of people are wanting to know what is your pick, and I don't know if you watched the odds show or listened to it. But the guy with the lowest odds I had at the top was Seth Feider at 2-1. Then I had Matt Herron at 4-1, Brandon Polinick 4-1, Patrick Walters 5-1, and Chris Zaldane at 5-1. Who do you think is going to win this thing, Frank? Any idea if you had to guess? Do you like what I did as far as the trend? Does trends really have a solidification of how these guys are going to perform at this event?
Yeah, I mean the trend is the way to go, because you're seeing how the competitor is finishing out his season or starting his season. As this case is, if a guy's on a downtrend, that's kind of important, especially going into this venue. I don't know. I'll lean on Polinick. I mean, I'll lean on him for a minute. He's a good enough angler to get it done. No question about it. He's right up there.
Versatile, great in adjusting.
Exactly. Here, look.
Yeah.
We talk about Wheeler a lot, but Polinick also needs to be in that conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, he does. I'll lean towards him. I just want to watch it. I just want to see what they do. You know? Justin
Bass earnings. I was kind of shocked when I was doing all the research. He has almost $1.6 million in earnings, and I think that's 10 or 11 years on the tour. So he's averaging, $157,000 a year fishing professionally.
Yeah.
And here's the other stat that was not the stat of this tournament, but the fact that out of his last 23 events, his average finish was 28th.
Yeah, dude,
think about that. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's stellar fishing. I mean, that in this game, that's good. Consistency is the whole key. I mean, if consistency wasn't important, the Angler of the Year race would be meaningless.
Yeah,
the Angler of the Year race is the trophy. Let's be honest. I mean, that's the guy who is consistent the longest and the best. So that's the whole key to bass fishing is consistency. You can't win every one. So you got to be good in as many as you can be,
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. All right, man. I'm going to say this, folks. Frank and I, we've been working on several things. And one of the things that we're going to launch here, you would say the next 2 weeks maybe? Maybe talk about it next week.
Probably so.
Yeah, and let everybody know what's going on. But bottom line is this. It's absolutely a 100% result of what the fans have been asking for. That's a good way of putting it, isn't it, Frank?
You know what? That's very accurate. I look at all the DMs you guys send me on Instagram, Scalish_fishing. I answer all of them. Sometimes it's time consuming, but I answer all of them. And I started as Mark did, because Mark has a lot of comments and stuff that I don't get that he forwards to me. There's a trend that we're seeing, and we're going to react to what you guys want, and it's exciting, and it's going to be an absolute blast. So hang in there, because we'll announce it very shortly.
Yeah, hopefully next week we'll be able to make the announcement and then start launching what Frank and I have in the works. So, folks, I will say this: Frank is 100% right. This is going to be so cool, and it's all a result of you. And I cannot thank the fans enough for making this day 4 what it has turned into.
100%.
Hey, man, it's 100% due to you, Frank. And fans, you have a gem.
It's the
There
fans.
is a
It's
gem.
them.
No, there is a gem on day 4, and I know all the fans out there greatly appreciate all your knowledge and guidance. And I'll say this. We're going to take it to another level. All right? Coming soon. We're going to take it to another level.
To the highest level. And, you guys make everything possible. Just remember that. You will never, ever hear me on this platform talk about something that a technique or a bait or something that I heard that I didn't experience myself. Everything that I talk about is 100% truth. So that's why this is so much fun. I've been doing this sport forever, and it's so much fun to get feedback when guys are successful and things work out, because it just reinforces, when there's an old saying, I think it was, when the student's ready to learn, the teacher will be found. Is that how that statement goes?
I think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
But it's so exciting, to be able to give back. It's hard. It's hard. Okay. When I was competing, it was a different kind of game, because I fished for a living. I dealt with my sponsors. I really hit the ground running, and there wasn't much you could give back at that point. You could shake hands and be nice and friendly, and that's giving back to a certain degree. But now I have the opportunity to really give to this sport, and that's all I've ever wanted to do, aka the lure designs, new lures, colors, etc., and now teaching format. So it's exciting for me. It means a lot to me. You guys mean a lot to me, because if it wasn't for the fans, none of this would be possible.
Yeah, great stuff. So we will discuss that in depth next Thursday on the day 4 for next week. All right, real quick, Frank, I got to let everybody know. We will be, Matt and myself will be at the Bassmaster Classic. We'll be hanging around the Bass Tank booth, and then we'll be around the AFCO booth, mainly around, I think, noon and 1 o'clock on Saturday. There will be a limited, keyword there, limited number of BTL hats and buffs and a few clothing items in the Bass Tank booth. So if you are going to the Bassmaster Classic, go by, say hi. Make sure, if you do have your BTL merch, man, make sure you wear that stuff around the Classic and around the show if you plan on attending. And then we will have another limited run that we're going to launch either next week or the week after that, where you will be able to buy a limited edition Day 4 T-shirt with Frank and the logo on the back, and then the BTL logo on the front, along with some other items. So that is going to be posted on the Bass Zone website either next week or the week after, and you will get an opportunity to support what we have going on here at BTL. The last thing, I announced it yesterday. I'm really looking forward to this. We will be, Matt and myself will be broadcasting live next Wednesday beginning at 9 a.m. at the local Black Rifle Coffee retail store here in Moore, Oklahoma. Hey, we got some free cards to give out, and I wish I could remember exactly what we're doing from a free standpoint. But we want you to come out, hang out, be on the show. James Watson, worldwide, is going to be on location with us during that time, and I think we're going to do a 2-hour show that day. So from
good.
9 to 11 o'clock Wednesday, live from Black Rifle Coffee here in Moore, Oklahoma. Please come out, say hi, join us, wear your BTL merch. And, hey, we're going to put a few guests on the show, too. We're going to give them a headset, Frank.
Outstanding.
Yeah, join the party.
I'll start driving down tomorrow.
They wouldn't be able to have that many people in the store if you drove down here, Frank. Jeez.
That is
They'd be calling the fire marshal.
Yeah, hey, just remember, man, watch that caffeine intake. You're too ramped up already.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not going to let that happen. All right, folks. Classic Week, definitely here. We are running toward the end of Classic Week. Things get started tomorrow. Going to be a fantastic 3 days of fishing on beautiful Ray Roberts in northern Texas. And check it out. And then we will not be doing a post-game show for the Classic, but Matt and I will be back in studio on Monday to give everybody and discuss what went down in the DFW area over the past 3 days, and we'll take it from there. Then, as you know, Frank, the guy that wins this thing, I think we might be able to get him on the show maybe in December?
That's about accurate. That's right. He's going to be one busy hombre. That's all I'm going to say. He's going to be one busy guy.
He's a little busy, so we'll do our best to get the champion on BTL and go from there. So everybody have a safe weekend. Look forward to seeing some of the BTL fans at the Expo show at the Bassmaster Classic. And then Matt and I will be back on Monday in studio. Frank, enjoy the action. We will talk to you next week, man.
Adios.
All right, that's it. We're out of here.